All right. Welcome to episode 46 of the Jake Blanchard podcast, brought to you in part by our friends at Fellowship Brand. They make premium men's grooming products, oils, balms, waxes, butters, and coming soon, tattoo oil. These guys are changing the game with simple design, organic ingredients only, and incredible scent profiles. Go to fellowshipbrand.com, check out their products. JBP at checkout gets you free shipping on your first order. My guest today, Jason Stauffer. He's a Phoenix native. He's an Army combat veteran and an ASU graduate. He got his bachelor's degree in science and civil engineering, environmental and sustainable engineering. ASU, my alma mater as well. He has a background in healthcare analytics, game theory, system analysis, and optimization. His early civilian career, he worked for for-profit pharmaceuticals, gave him some intimate knowledge about the decreasing ability of synthetic medicine to treat underlying causes of disease and aging, chronic ailments, and post-industrial afflictions of human urban society, which is fascinating. I can't wait to understand more, but here's the underpinning. He's now the president of Morzorko Forge, a company that makes the coolest looking ice baths on the planet, in my opinion. And I am so excited to chat with him today. Jason, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me on, Jake.
Dude, that's a pretty robust introduction there. Before we get started, I just wanted to let you know, I seeked you out after having Chris Gethin on the podcast. We started talking about ice baths. I know that he's been biohacking. He's been doing a lot of things for years and getting in touch with himself in that way. And a commonality he and I shared. I've been inconsistent over the years. Since January this year, I've really been getting after seeking out the cold. And he was raving about your company when he came on my podcast, and then we were off camera as well. So excited to chat with you about all the cool things you're doing.
Yeah, I love it. Chris has been a great support.
So military, civil engineering, data analytics, game theory. Where's all this? Take us through kind of a logical trajectory. Where do you want to start here that kind of helps us shape how you got into the icebox, man?
Sure. So I think as the company progresses and as we get a little bit older, there's different arcs that we can tell in different parts of the story. And it's getting to that point where you can't tell the whole thing in even a couple of hours. But I like to talk about the experience that I had in pharmaceutical data analytics, and first working with a small for-profit pharmaceutical company here in Scottsdale, Arizona. And then I actually went into a consultancy. I was working with nonprofit hospitals, helping them take advantage of a specific federal program called the 340B program, which basically says if you're a federal manufacturer, if you're a pharmaceutical manufacturer, you have a product, and you want the government to pay for that product on Medicare and Medicaid, which you do because that's a huge book of business, there's some strings attached to that. And so some of those strings are that you must offer your product to certain types of qualifying nonprofit hospitals for massive discounts. And this sometimes can take a pharmaceutical product that's got a sticker price of $5,000 on it and take it down to like 25 cents. So sometimes these differences are significant. And so working with these hospitals, I was processing a lot of pharmaceutical data, thousands and thousands and thousands of lines of pharmaceutical data, auditing patient records to make sure that they're maintaining the proper records to keep them compliant with the program. And what started happening is I started to just get like this macro level view and understanding of how drugs are being prescribed, where the pockets of metabolic disease are. I could look at, data from the southern United States, from like Appalachia or something like that, and see, what the insulin usage was. I can look at data from, the San Francisco area and see what kinds of diabetic medications and hypertension medications and things like that. And I really started solidifying this understanding that like nobody is really getting better. There isn't a whole lot of true healing and wellness that's going on in that culture, and there's many complex reasons for that. But I just kept seeing these chronic medications, these chronic conditions, just perpetuating, and nobody was getting out of that system. It's like, when people fall into that system and they start getting those chronic symptom management medications, they're just caught in it. And I really just, I needed to do something about that. And that's eventually what led me to the cold, and to taking ice baths, and digging into scientific literature, and really kind of piecing together what the actual benefits of the therapy and the practice are.
So it wasn't just living in Phoenix and being in the hot sun all the time and starting to hop in
No.
the cold.
Well, I mean, in the grand, it probably motivated us to develop the device, because even in, we're getting ready to go into the summertime here, and the tap water will come out at 85 degrees. So there's really no such thing as a cold shower in the summertime here. So maybe in the grand scheme of things, the the necessity being the mother of all invention. If I wanted to be in Phoenix and get cold regularly, there needed to be a device. You had to be able to plug something in.
For sure. So like, how'd you start your journey toward the cold? What was your first experience with taking the plunge?
Sure. So it was an amateur Wim Hof class that was being offered here in Phoenix. This was, I want to say, October 2017. I had seen some friends post online that they were getting into these ice baths. I myself had been in kind of this longer journey of finding ways to test myself and to stress myself. I read a book called Anti-Fragile, written by a mathematician, a linguist, and stock trader named Nassim Taleb. And in the book, Taleb outlines his kind of philosophical understanding of this concept that he calls anti-fragility, that there are certain things, especially in biology, when you stress them, they get better. So a lot of the book deals with social and economic systems, but there's a physiological and a biological aspect to it as well. And anti-fragility can be thought of, if you want a tree to grow taller, you prune its lower branches. Now the tree doesn't just grow back those lower branches, it will grow taller and extend up to the sky. If we want to build muscles, if we want to get all jacked up like Chris Gethin is, you go to the gym, you lift heavy weights. This is actually trauma to your tissue. You're actually tearing muscle tissue, and your body doesn't just rebound back to the point it was, it goes a little bit beyond. And so there are these certain types of anti-fragile processes that we can access and leverage them for our own growth, healing, wellness. And so I'd already been kind of on this kick of like looking for these things. What are these things that I can find? And then seeing like the Wim Hof culture start to emerge, some friends posting pictures on Instagram of them getting in the ice bath, and I'm like, that's it. I gotta hook up with these people and gotta do this thing. So I did. I took my first ice bath Wim Hof class here in Phoenix, October 2017, and right away, just the experience I had just told me like, this is it. This is one of those things. I didn't have the scientific understanding or the physiological understanding, but there was like this immediate like, this is it. This is one of those things. And so started doing my own breath work and weekly ice baths in the backyard here in Phoenix, Arizona, and just then started getting into the scientific literature and finding out that it's not just some cool party trick where, hey, Jason can sit in the ice. And there's a lot that this works on. It works on the vascular system, the metabolic system, mood regulation, hormone regulation, all kinds of different systems that this therapy actually does elegantly benefit.
Yeah, and I think you touch on Wim Hof. What an interesting, fascinating story he is, and for people who aren't familiar, like my high level understanding is that he's just a man who went inward because he had some traumatic things that happened around him in his life. I can't remember exactly what those were, and I don't want to speak out of turn there, but I know that it forced him to really start working on his breath, and then he started gravitating toward being around cold and cold water. And over time, he's created systems around teaching others to do this, and it's really taken off. Like nationally, yeah. I mean, he was speaking with Tony Robbins, I think, right before COVID for at least a year or so, traveling the country, teaching people how to breathe and encouraging people to seek out the cold.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's an amazing story, and Scott Carney's book, "What Doesn't Kill Us," really goes into it in depth. And yeah, he was processing a lot of trauma, which again, that's just another system that this benefit that this therapy benefits.
So let's talk about the breath work, and how
Hmm.
important breath work is when you start seeking out things like cold showers, which is where a lot of people start, and then you start to kind of go through that maturation process into getting into freezing cold buckets of ice. Like, why is breathing so important? And then maybe what's the science maybe around that and its relationship to your body processing the cold?
For me, the breath work, the biggest benefit for me for doing the breath work, and I'm glad that I did that first ice bath after a breath work session, was it showed me that I'm stronger than I think I am. That you can uh, do that kind of hyperventilative breathing to the point where you're super oxygenating your cells, you're expelling out a lot of carbon dioxide, and then you can hold your breath for like 2 minutes, which is, and some people they'll develop even more, holding their breath for 4 or 5 minutes. But that first day before that first ice bath, I'm really glad that I did that first breathwork session. It was my first breathwork session as well that day, because then walking up to the ice bath, I had already been shown that I am stronger than I think I am. I am capable of things that I wasn't quite, innately aware that I was capable of. And I think that really helped me get into that first ice bath. So yeah, I don't do a whole lot of breathwork sessions. I might do like 2 or 3 a year in kind of like a shamanic healing breathwork session. For me, the breath through the cold is about being calm and like returning our breath to a calm state. And that's one of the things that we train people in our method, the Morozko method, is to return ourselves to a place of calm where we're sitting in the ice bath, just breathing very normally, very lightly. And it's a little bit different than what Wim's doing, but I do love Wim and I love what he does.
Absolutely. And then what are some of the most common misconceptions when we're talking about getting in the ice bath? Like people thinking that
Hmm.
it makes you sick. If you get in,
Hmm.
it'll make you sick, or you can get hypothermia from like 30 seconds to a minute. And
Right.
I've heard people say some interesting things, especially when I invite them into my backyard to jump into my trough back there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of those excuses come out on how long can I stay, and then how long people actually can stay if they just
Sure.
stay.
Yeah, definitely the hypothermia thing we get a lot. And some people think that they can get frostbite, which one of the benefits about cold water versus like cryotherapy. Cryotherapy, it's actually possible to get frostbite. That's why they give you the earmuffs, and the gloves, and they put the booties on you, because at those super dry air temperatures or dry gas temperatures in a cryotherapy chamber, it's possible to get frostbite. In fact, there was an NFL player, I think it was Antonio Brown or something like that, who recently
Yeah.
he lost some tissue on his foot through a cryotherapy chamber. And in cold water, in 32, 33-degree water, it's just not possible. Frostbite is not possible until you get to like super low temperatures, which the water can't do because it would be frozen solid at that and you wouldn't be able to get in it. And then the hypothermia, which is a drop in core body temperature, that's certainly possible in an ice bath, but it doesn't set in quick. Like, and you would have a lot of alarm bells going off. You'd be uncontrollably like shivering and shaking because your body, the shiver response, the body is just trying to rub its molecules together to create heat from friction. That's what the shiver response is. And that would, I mean, in a 33-degree bath, you're talking like 10, 15, 20 minutes, and you would have these alarm bells, everything in your system telling you to like get the hell out of here. And as long as you can get out and warm up, as long as you're not getting out into like a Minnesota January outdoors, as long as you can get out and warm up, then you're going to be fine and you're going to recover. uh, so yeah, about the only other negative thing that I've heard of, I've never personally experienced it or seen it, is a condition called chilblains, which sometimes people will get. It almost looks like a sunburn on like their fingers or their toes or something like that. I've heard of a couple of people doing that, but I said I've never personally experienced it or witnessed it.
Okay. So then, shifting back to the entrepreneurial side of the house here, obviously you're trying to solve a problem. Any entrepreneurs out there trying to solve a problem with the current state of a particular industry or subculture or something that's fun and interesting to do. What problem are you trying to solve with your organization? And maybe expand a little bit on what you guys are all about.
Absolutely. So, the Industrial Revolution gave us a lot of really great things. We're speaking on, a communications device that would look like, like magic to somebody 150 years ago. But yeah, when I like having cars and I like having cities and airplanes and things like that. But that revolution wasn't free. It wasn't without its costs, and there was a huge chain of events that was set in motion through the Industrial Revolution when it comes to human health. One of the first things is when we created the factory, we created factory food. And so now food as a business model is how can I take the cheapest ingredients to produce and the highest margin on the food, and how can I mass produce that? And so that's what we see a lot in our diets. We're overfed on bad food. Most people don't actually need to eat 3 meals a day. This idea that we all are on this time-based eating where we're eating breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, dinner, snack, we're eating 3 meals and 3 snacks a day is it's just way too much food for the average person. Unless you're like Chris and you're actually burning thousands and thousands of calories a day, in what you do, and some of us do that. We don't all need that same amount of food. And when it's high sugar, high carb, we see that the growing obesity epidemic, the growing epidemic of diabetes, and these other metabolic conditions, poor immune health, it just starts growing and growing and growing. Now, ironically, one of the beautiful technologies of the Industrial Revolution, refrigeration, is what I use to kind of counterbalance some of the negative externalities that becoming a climate-controlled species has brought to us. So, a lot of us, no matter where we live, whether it's Phoenix, Arizona, or St. Paul, Minnesota, whether it's really hot or really cold, if we were savvy enough, we could live most of our lives in about the same, temperature volatility. I could go from a climate-controlled house into an air-conditioned car to an air-conditioned office or place of business and barely be exposed to the seasons or the elements, in between. And that too has an effect on us. It has an effect on our physiology because it's an unnatural environment. So many of us live in such unnatural environments that we don't understand how that has an effect on our autoimmune processes, our hormones, everything down to our vascular system. And so getting back to the cold turns out to be a very, very elegant way to kind of rename some of these stimuli that our physiology adapted to respond to over the course of human evolution, and we start to reverse those we call it industrial disease. Those industrial diseases, the metabolic, the immune, the hormonal, psychological, vascular.
Wow. Okay. So then there's the way that people utilize cold, right? You're obviously using refrigeration, but the traditional model is get a bucket, get some ice, pour it in there, hop in. You're wasting one. It starts to cost a lot. I can tell you firsthand, it starts to cost a lot when you are purchasing as much ice as you need, especially in warm weather, to cool down a body of water like that. Even though like the water coming out of my hose isn't like the water coming out of the hose in Scottsdale in the summer, it's still, you're still using, close to 100 pounds of ice sometimes at least to get the temperature down to where you want. Your product doesn't have to worry about stuff like that, right? I mean, that's the whole core
Correct.
of what you guys do. So what's the kind of the technology revolution there? Like how do you get to make your own ice in water? I don't understand.
Yeah, and we're the only cold plunge ice bath solution on the market that does get down to freezing temperatures and creates its own ice. I haven't really dissected. There've been a couple of competitors that have popped up since we started doing this. I haven't really dissected any of their products, but my main understanding is that they are moving the water through a chiller system And so by moving the water, it's harder to get it down to those freezing temperatures. Now, our water does move as well. It moves through, well, on our filtered and ozone disinfected models, it moves through a micron filter and ozone disinfection system. But none of that has anything to do with the way that we cool the water. The water can be cooled from a static state, so without moving. So as long as I'm removing more thermal energy from the water than is being gained by the environment on a long enough timeline, it will get down to a freezing temperature.
Oh, that's phenomenal. And so like ice at the ready then. I mean, that's the byproduct is
Yeah,
being able to
yeah.
take a cold plunge whenever you want.
Absolutely. And I love that that's where the product ended up. We really just set out to try to make the coldest thing that we could. Some of our earlier prototypes, especially because it was, 2018 in the summer in Phoenix, and so it was 120 degrees outside. Some of those earlier prototypes, they weren't making ice. They were getting cold. They were getting like 36, 37 degrees. But we just kept iterating the design forward, kept improving on it. And then the next thing we're creating sheets of ice, because I really miss the ice. I miss the ice when I like to build up a large amount of ice in my forge so that when I get in it, it's like a security blanket, and I just love the feel and the sound of it. It just makes the whole experience a lot richer for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this company has been around for a couple of years now.
Hmm.
You passed the prototype phase. You've been out and about. I mean, I see you guys online. You're working with some really cool people. I saw your Instagram the other day working with Justin Wren, who's arguably the
Yeah,
nicest man in combat sports. What a phenomenal story he is. But
yeah, he's a sweetheart. I love him.
talk to me about the experiences that this has created and how it's picking up in the marketplace. I'd love to hear that.
Absolutely, yeah. And so we've been in the market since January of 2019. That's when we sold our first unit to a local fitness trainer here in the Phoenix area. And then in 2019, I think we ended up making somewhere between 35 and 40 units, which is great. It was a great way to start out. Definitely not very consistent. But then getting into 2020, we really started blowing up right about the time that lockdowns were being implemented, and there's no real clear vision into what all of the different dynamics and variables were, whether it was just people's gyms and wellness centers being closed, people suddenly waking up to, hey, maybe I need to do something for my own immune health, because they've emptied all of the hospitals and I can't even get into a doctor, or just some organic growth, whatever. We ended up with a pretty big backlog of orders in 2020, and we were still building them in my backyard in Phoenix. And we ended up, I think, having like 50 on back order. And at the time, we're making like one a week, which is just not a good. I
Yeah.
mean, they're great problems to have, especially in the event that it was last year. And really challenged us to scale and grow. We created jobs, which was great, felt amazing. While other people's jobs were going away, we were creating a few. A few of those jobs literally went to like people who were laid off from their office job, people who didn't really have much crafting experience and had to be taught, okay, this is a hammer, this is a nail,
For sure.
but yeah, and then moving out of the backyard and into our commercial production facility, which I'm in our contrast spa right now, but we have a warehouse that's right on the other side of this hall over here, where the units are being made now, has been an amazing and challenging journey to kind of just keep running experiments, keep thinking how to grow, how to keep things going and improve on the design and on the supply lines, things like that. And then getting to meet great people like Justin Wren. He's such a big sweetheart and supporter of ours, and we've got some really great customers.
Yeah, that's incredible, man. And so what's upcoming? What are you guys excited about right now?
Definitely excited that as things are warming up, sales are warming up again. We're in our second year really with this thing. Yeah, second, third year with this thing. So nothing is normal yet. We don't know what a normal year for sales is because everything is still growing. But now we've gotten pretty much through that backlog of orders. We're starting to sell them intentionally again, because when we had that huge backlog, we didn't pay attention to marketing at all. We just let the sales come to us. Now that we're getting down to a respectable amount of lead time, it's really time to start focusing on growing sales and production in tandem. So again, that just presents a lot of interesting challenges and new experiments to run. And we're also thinking about expanding product lines. So we want to develop our own sauna that integrates some tuned LEDs for vitamin D production. Vitamin D deficiency is another one of those industrial diseases, and in the light of the events of the last year, it's come to a lot of people's attention that so many of us are vitamin D deficient, especially outside of the sunnier areas of society. So there's that, and we're also working on our own biohacking salon studio called Forge Wellness that will integrate not only our products but others as well. We're partnering with Mito Red Light and on a space in North Scottsdale, and starting to think about what other therapies, devices, modalities we want to bring in, and really focusing on becoming kind of the hub for the science and experience of all of these different biohacking modalities, of being able to collect a lot of data and a lot of experiences and start to aggregate it in a way that's digestible and valuable to the community at large.
We've talked about some of the benefits so far of the cold. We went through, I think we hit the top of the waves here in general, but for those who don't know, I mean, would there be a simple, or maybe if it's even not simple, explanation of like, what exactly is the cold doing when you expose your body to it? How is your body responding internally? And then why is that really a benefit? Why is it fragility?
Anti-fragile, yeah, anti-fragility.
Or, like those benefits. And then, can you do it once and see benefits, or is this like a consistent thing? And then what's the frequency? Like, help me understand that a little bit more. The science.
Yeah, I mean, if you only ever do one ice bath, then that's applause right there. Or even if you do it like once a month, 2 to 3 times a year, there's always going to be some benefit. My wife, Adrienne, who's also a business partner, says any amount of cold is a good amount of cold. And then getting into, I guess, more details on what I feel. Again, I'm an engineer, not a doctor. What I feel is happening is that our physiologies are just being, when we take an ice bath, when we do deliberate cold exposure, our physiologies are being woken up into a state that is natural to us. So we are all descended from earlier humans who walked barefoot and naked across glaciers to track hooved animals, from those earlier humans. And so these cold states are states that a lot of us on some long timeline have evolved from. And so our vascular systems, our hormonal systems, our thyroids, our nervous systems, all adapted over a million years of human evolution to go through these conditions. And again, we've stopped doing that. And so by reintroducing those hormetic stress states, those temperature volatilities, I feel we're really just waking our systems up to function the way that they would naturally have functioned. And it can have so many different benefits. One of the main ones that I like talking about is the vasomotor constrictive response. So this is a tightening of our vascular system that happens when we expose ourselves to very cold temperatures, especially in water. And it can help, my sense is that it helps stave off a disease of aging called chronic venous insufficiency. So if you go to senior centers, old folks' homes, you're going to see a lot of seniors who are very cold, they have very poor circulation, especially in their feet and their hands. And this is because, like I said, when we live our entire lives in kind of that temperature normalized state, we're not using the muscle tissue in our vascular system the way that it was adapted. Now we can use aerobic exercise or heat exposure like a sauna to dilate our vascular system, but there's really only one way to constrict our vascular system down to get the opposite of that exercise. It's like the other half of the push-up, right?
Ooh,
And that's what
I like that analogy a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody gave that to me, by the way. I can't remember who.
Wow.
Yeah, so I can't remember who I was talking to, but yeah, they were the first ones to say that. And so it's like the other half of the push-up, right, where you're constricting it down through the cold. Now, these seniors with this condition, chronic venous insufficiency, in some advanced states of it, they will develop a condition called digital ulceritis. So this is ulcers that actually develop on the fingers and the toes. This is happening because the vascular system is no longer healthy enough to supply enough blood to that tissue to keep it alive. And when this happens, it's a massive drop in quality of life right away, because if you've got sores on your fingers and your toes, you can't walk anywhere, you can't feed yourself because you can't hold a fork or a spoon, you can't dress yourself, you can't do buttons, things like that. And once that disease states progresses from there, you'll actually see amputations as well. So you see fingers, hands, toes, feet having to be cut off of people as they near the end of their physical life. Now all of us have to end our physical lives at some point. And my hope is that through the regular cold exposure, this specific disease state, chronic venous insufficiency, is something that I won't have to deal with, when that time comes. So that's one of them. Another one that we're seeing recently, we've got a few anecdotal evidence on myself, my business partner, a couple of my business partners, is testosterone boosting. So in men's health, this is super valuable, and we see the information that there's like a testosterone crisis in our society. Collectively we have something like a third of the testosterone that our grandfathers did, or something like that.
Yeah, I was, I had a guest on actually podcast released today with Barton Scott, and he was talking about um, how much xenoestrogen is just in our drinking water for cities that are recycling drinking water. It's the estrogen is not coming out; it's coming off of
Wow.
products like sunscreens, or like
Mm-hmm.
women who take birth control that obviously they urinate into the water. If that water is getting cleaned in the many of these plants in large cities, but they're just taking all the bacterial and things out, not the estrogen.
Right. Wow.
It's a
I
wild
hadn't.
concept. I'm just starting to learn a little bit about this whole testosterone reduction in society.
Yeah, yeah. I've had mine tested. I had tested the first time right before my 40th birthday, and then again right before my 41st birthday, and I'll be 42 in October. But between those two data points, I'd actually increased my testosterone by 30%.
Oh, wow.
So and at my age, getting into my 40s, and a lot of the men that we see in industrialized society, that's when they're on that that downward slide. Yeah.
Wow. All right. So there's certainly a lot of benefits. Then one is, and I'm not going to say it right, but vascular constriction,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
You're
vasomotor constrictive response. Yeah.
yeah, what you said there. But essentially that means our bodies are, because we live in a very comfortable setting. A lot of times our body's likely asleep at the wheel. It's not being tested with the
Yeah.
external elements that it's meant to do, which means a lot
Hmm.
of our bodies just kind of like closing up the blinds and closing up shop until we have some kind of like real flight or fight response. Uh,
Absolutely.
and then the day-to-day stresses, we're getting a lot of people with depression and anxiety and a lot of these other
Hmm.
like between the ears stressors, right? And you're mental, but you're not getting a lot of the physical stressors. And if you're not exercising, if you're not pushing yourself, your ability to deal with those mental stressors probably goes way down. That's
Oh,
my
it's absolutely 100%. Yeah. Yeah, and so it's about 30 seconds into an ice bath, your brain is going to reward you with a boost of norepinephrine and dopamine. That's why that kind of like calming rush can come in, and we see it all the time. We call it the people's ice face, because even if it's their first ice bath, they'll be freaking out for that first 30 seconds, and all of a sudden it's like, and this is great because the norepinephrine and dopamine, it's a natural antidepressant, anti-anxiety, anti-stress, and it already exists in our brain. Like those neurotransmitters are in there, and they're in there for a reason. And being able to induce them intentionally can help us not only start to associate the ice bath experience with that pleasurable experience, with that boost of neurotransmitters, but it can help us with all kinds of other different stressors in life. So we see all the time people with a cultivated, deliberate cold exposure practice. They'll say like, traffic doesn't make me mad anymore. And, I had an uncomfortable conversation with the person I was in a relationship with. It didn't turn into shouting or anger, or, their professional life. They're handling more stressors in their professional life. Because once you learn how to calm yourself through a 32-degree ice bath for a couple of minutes, then those other external stressors tend to be more easily negotiated as well.
Absolutely. Volume just gets turned down, man, right?
Yeah,
I
it's
love
like
it.
I don't have to freak out about that. I don't have to let that destroy my peace.
Well, so what's been your favorite part of this process so far? Maybe one through the lens of an entrepreneur, and then two through the lens of an individual that found a practice that is
Hmm.
I think life changing, life giving, like whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, absolutely. On the individual level, I think it's helped me to process a lot of my own trauma. First of all, it kind of helped me to realize that I was a traumatized person. I kind of had this idea that, I was the guy who got out of the army and was just fine, because I didn't lose any fingers or toes, I didn't lose an eye, I never had to take a life, fortunately. So the tendency is to think like, I'm the lucky one, I'm the one that got out without any trauma. And then even, just childhood trauma, all of us who were born and raised in this industrialized society have a base level of trauma. And being on this path of healing and wellness for myself helped me realize, yes, Jason, you are a traumatized person. You have things that you need to work on. No, it's not just normal to get angry sometimes. I mean, yeah, we get angry sometimes, but it doesn't have to be. And it's I don't have to get sick. I don't have to get the flu. I haven't gotten the flu in years. And I used to get tonsillitis like twice a year ever since I was a kid, and that seems to have gone away as well. So there's things that I was accepting as normal that the deliberate cold exposure practice has shown me. These may be normal in that they're common, but you don't have to experience them. You can heal yourself. You can heal your trauma. You can boost your immune system. You can increase your hormonal balance and health. And these things are possible. And so that's been personally the great part about this journey. As an entrepreneur, self-employment has its own stressors. It's a lot of ups and downs, but it resonates with me. And other things that I had accepted as normal was the 2 hours of commuting a day in the polo shirt and the khakis to the office, where you can only really be 60 or 70% of your authentic self, right? Because it's an office environment, and you got to play the office politics and things like that. But being aligned on my own project and to be basically my own boss, even though it comes with those panic-inducing headaches and stressors, I wouldn't have it any other way, because that alignment is so valuable. And to be able to live authentically and in my truth wherever I am is beautiful, and I love it. And I understand that it's not for everybody, but for me, yeah, I can't imagine ever going back to the job.
Oh, that's phenomenal, man. And the more that I think about it, and as I listen to you talk about it, I mean, there's certain things that we do in our lives that have a big tax of time. Like if you
Mm,
want to get, like if you want to be a better runner, endurance runner, it takes time. Like you really have to carve out a bunch of time in your day to be able to do that. When it comes to ice baths, especially if you're leveraging some of the technology that you guys have put into your system, this is 5 minutes a day, something like that. I
mm,
mean, as far as like
mm.
the benefits, or 10 minutes, whatever it is to get ready, to get in,
Sure.
dry
Yeah.
off, get out, and get back to your regular life, the tax of it doesn't seem quite as much. Now for, folks like me who are like doing it in my backyard, and I've got my whole little setup back there, it's kind of a different deal. I got to go buy
Hmm.
ice, got to go do this other stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if you've got it dialed in, like it seems like one of the hardest, one of the best returns on investment that you can make in your health, arguably, as I'm
Yeah.
looking across the landscape, time, dollars, output, the whole deal.
Yeah. Especially, we talk a lot about in our society about the cost of healthcare, and it's really, really the price of symptom management. And we talk a lot about, like environmental concerns, and the healthcare industry, the sick care industry is one of the most environmentally poor industries. I mean, it's so much of it's all one-use plastic, syringes and bags and catheters and pill bottles and all of this other stuff. It's a massively wasteful system, and so much of it, again, when you can emerge from this mentality that has normalized these things, so much of that industry just doesn't have to be there. If the more people are getting into uncomfortable therapies and really approaching their diets in a way that leads them to better health outcomes, whatever path they find that leads them there, we could just you really could just start like mothballing so much of that society, so much of that industry that really only exists to profit off of the results of people's lifestyles. And so much of it. I mean, if I break my arm or I get shot in the shoulder, I'm going to the hospital, right? But operating in a way that keeps me out of the doctor's office, out of the hospital, out of those wasteful industries, I feel just has such a potential for far-reaching change in our societies.
I love it, man. Hey, as we're getting ready to wrap up here, any stones we left unturned? Anything that you wanted to talk about or touch on today?
Uh, you know, for me, I think that one of the things that I would really love people to kind of meditate on and think about is, just as I just said, use your own personal outcomes and experimentation to find therapies, practices, diets that lead the individual to a better, happier, more healthful place. And approaching things with curiosity is beneficial in that. Too often we end up in practices because of social shame or trends or other narratives and things like that. And just use yourself and trust yourself and say, and is this making me better? Whether that's a vegan diet or eating 10 pounds of red meat a week, is it making you happier, healthier, more fulfilled, and more aligned in your authentic self? And I think if we flip our mindset sets in this way to use those outcomes, then so much could be created, and so much benefit could be gleaned from that.
I absolutely love what you said there. There's a lot of ways to live, brother. There really
Yeah,
is.
absolutely.
And for you to be able to, as an individual, start to carve your own path instead of bouncing around everybody else's, hoping that you'll be validated by external sources when really it's you
Yeah.
inside, and that true authentic self you just talked about. That's most important, man. I resonate with that wholeheartedly. Where might people find you on social media, find your company? Just shout those out real quick as we're
Yeah,
wrapping up here.
Instagram is a big one for us. So the company is at Morozko Forge, and then myself, I'm at Jason_Morozko. That's Morozko.
Hey, man, I appreciate you, one, responding to my request to come on the podcast. It's been such a fascinating conversation. And then two, I applaud you and the work that you and your team are doing in order to simplify an industry that has so much health benefits for people. And I appreciate your insights and your time, and looking forward to next time we can get together.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, brother.
All right, cheers.